The emergence of threat. The first tremors of change began not with a bang, but with a whisper of data streaming through the global communication network. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat motionless, her dark eyes reflecting the cascade of information dancing across multiple holographic displays in the Advanced Xenological Research Center, located in the heart of Chile's Atacama Desert. "Something's different," she muttered, her fingers tracing intricate patterns across the quantum interface. The system had been monitoring interstellar communication patterns for years, a global project that few outside the scientific community knew existed. Most dismissed it as a futile attempt to detect extraterrestrial intelligence. Elena knew better. The quantum sensors, a breakthrough technology developed through international collaboration, picked up subtle quantum entanglement signatures that didn't match any known natural phenomenon. Unlike previous false alarms, these signals carried a distinct pattern: deliberate, structured, and unmistakably artificial. Her colleague, Dr. Marcus Chen, leaned over her shoulder, his breath catching in his throat. "Those aren't random," he whispered. The signals formed a complex mathematical sequence that defied conventional communication protocols. It was a message, but not one meant to be easily understood. Simultaneously, in orbital tracking stations around the world, similar discoveries were being made. The global network of quantum observatories had been quietly linked, sharing data in real time through a system that made traditional internet communication look like primitive smoke signals. Commander Aisha Okoro of the United African Space Command received the first visual confirmation. The massive display in her command center flickered to life, revealing a series of massive objects emerging from a quantum distortion at the edge of the solar system. They weren't like anything humanity had imagined, not the sleek vessels of science fiction, nor the crystalline structures often hypothesized by theorists. These were living machines, organic and mechanical merged in a way that challenged every understanding of technology. Each vessel seemed to breathe, its surface rippling with complex biomechanical processes. They moved with an intelligence that suggested consciousness beyond simple program navigation. "Identify," Aisha commanded, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. The AI system responded, its synthesized voice carrying a hint of uncertainty. "Unknown vessel configuration. Quantum signature indicates technological advancement approximately 700 to 800 years beyond current human capabilities. Preliminary classification. Nexus Collective Reconnaissance Fleet." The name meant nothing to most, but to a select group of researchers who had been tracking subtle cosmic anomalies, the Nexus Collective was more than just a theoretical possibility. They were a civilization rumored to assimilate technological and biological systems, transforming entire star systems into complex, interconnected networks. Back in the Atacama, Elena's hands moved with lightning speed. She wasn't just observing. She was analyzing, searching for patterns, trying to understand the fundamental language of this approaching intelligence. Years of research into quantum communication, xenolinguistics, and advanced computational systems were converging in this singular moment. "They're not here to communicate," Marcus said, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and deep-seated fear. "They're here to assess." Global leadership, typically fractured and slow to respond, moved with unprecedented unity. Emergency sessions were called across international bodies. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting, with representatives from every major nation joining through advanced holographic conferencing. No speeches were made about territorial integrity or political posturing. The presentation was clinical, data-driven. Elena and her team presented their findings, showing the complex quantum signatures, the approach vectors, and the potential capabilities of the incoming vessels. What made humanity different this time was preparation. Unlike previous hypothetical scenarios of alien contact, this wasn't a moment of surprise. It was a moment of calculated readiness. Quantum communication networks lit up. Military systems, which had been quietly developing technologies far beyond public knowledge, began to activate. These weren't just defensive preparations. They were a demonstration of human adaptability, of a species that had learned to prepare for the unexpected. The Nexus Collective was approaching, believing they were about to encounter another potential system to assimilate. They didn't realize that humanity had been watching, waiting, and most importantly, thinking several steps ahead. As the first vessels began to cross the heliopause, the boundary where the sun's solar wind meets interstellar space, humanity held its collective breath. This wasn't going to be a simple encounter. This was going to be a statement, a declaration of what it truly means to be human. The game was about to change, and no one, not even the technologically advanced Nexus Collective, was prepared for what was coming. Technological awakening. Deep beneath the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, a facility that had long been thought obsolete, Dr. Kama Okello reviewed the final preparations. The room hummed with an energy that was equal parts anticipation and calculated precision. Holographic displays surrounded him, each showing different aspects of humanity's most closely guarded technological secrets. Activation sequence initiated, he muttered, his fingers dancing across a quantum interface that seemed to respond to his thoughts as much as his touch. The displays shifted, revealing layers of technology that would have seemed like pure science fiction just a decade ago. The Adaptive Quantum Response Network, or AQRN, was humanity's ultimate hedge against the unknown. Unlike traditional military systems that relied on predetermined responses, the AQRN was a living, breathing technological organism. It learned, adapted, and evolved in real time, drawing from a vast reservoir of scientific knowledge and predictive algorithms. In orbit, a series of satellites that appeared to be nothing more than standard communication relays began to reconfigure. Their seemingly mundane exteriors concealed technologies that could rewrite the fundamental understanding of space, time, and communication. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now working in close coordination with military and scientific teams, explained the core principle to a select group of international leaders. "We're not just preparing a defense," she said, her holographic image crisp and clear. "We're creating a dynamic response system that can anticipate and neutralize threats before they fully materialize." The Nexus Collective's approach had triggered a global awakening. Decades of compartmentalized research, hidden projects, and theoretical breakthroughs were now being integrated at an unprecedented pace. Universities, research centers, and military laboratories that had once competed now worked in perfect synchronization. Commander Aisha Okoro oversaw the deployment of the first line of defense, a network of quantum entanglement communication relays that could transmit information faster than light, effectively creating a real-time neural network that spanned the entire solar system. These weren't just communication devices, they were adaptive intelligence nodes that could analyze, predict, and respond to potential threats. In a hidden facility beneath the Gobi Desert, a team of engineers and xenotechnologists worked on something even more revolutionary. Led by Dr. Marcus Chen, they were developing quantum interference technologies that could potentially manipulate the very fabric of spacetime. The Nexus Collective believes in linear technological progression, Marcus explained to his team. They see technology as a ladder to be climbed. We see it as a web, interconnected, fluid, capable of unexpected transformations. The first real test came unexpectedly. The Nexus Collective sent what appeared to be a preliminary reconnaissance signal, a complex quantum transmission designed to probe humanity's technological capabilities. What they received in response was nothing short of stunning. Instead of a simple return signal, the AQRN generated a response that was simultaneously a communication, a defense mechanism, and a statement of intent. The quantum transmission contained layers of information that would take the collective years to fully decode. It was a message that said, without words, "We are not what you expect." Quantum sensors around the solar system began to light up. The hidden technologies that humanity had been developing were coming online, each system more breathtaking than the last. Orbital defense platforms that could manipulate gravitational fields, communication networks that could transmit consciousness itself, adaptive AI systems that learned and evolved with each millisecond of interaction. Dr. Kamao Kello watched the initial interactions with a sense of both excitement and trepidation. "We're about to show them something they've never encountered," he said softly to himself. "A species that doesn't just use technology, but becomes one with it." The Nexus Collective's initial probing signals began to change. What had started as a confident, almost dismissive approach was now becoming something else. Confusion. Uncertainty. For the first time, they were encountering a technological ecosystem that defied their understanding. Humanity wasn't just preparing for a potential conflict. They were redefining the very concept of technological interaction. Each system, each network, each quantum relay was more than a defensive mechanism. It was a living, breathing testament to human creativity, adaptability, and the boundless potential of collective human intelligence. The game had changed, and the Nexus Collective was just beginning to realize they had severely underestimated their potential adversaries. The quantum frontier. The first true engagement occurred not with weapons, but with information. Deep within the neural networks of the Adaptive Quantum Response Network, a new form of communication was taking shape, a conversation that transcended traditional understanding of interaction. Dr. Zora Nakamura, the lead quantum communication specialist, watched in fascination as the system began to interpret the Nexus Collective's signals. Her team had developed a revolutionary approach to xenocommunication that went far beyond simple translation. They were creating a dynamic linguistic algorithm that could understand not just words, but the fundamental thought patterns behind them. "It's not about decoding their language," Zora explained to her colleagues. "It's about understanding their cognitive architecture." The Nexus Collective's communication was structured, hierarchical, almost mathematical in its precision. In contrast, the human response was beautifully chaotic, a network of ideas that branched and interconnected in ways that defied linear logic. Where the collective saw communication as a precise transmission of information, humans saw it as a living, evolving dialogue. Simultaneously, in the orbital defense platforms, Commander Aisha Okoro oversaw a series of calculated provocations. These weren't traditional military maneuvers, but intricate quantum-level interactions designed to probe the collective's technological vulnerabilities. Each interaction was a complex dance of information. Human systems would present seemingly vulnerable points, only to reveal layers of adaptive defense mechanisms that would reconfigure faster than the collective could analyze. It was psychological warfare conducted at the quantum level, a game of technological chess where the board itself was constantly changing. Dr. Kamao Kello's team had prepared something truly extraordinary. They had developed what they called cognitive dissonance protocols, technological systems designed to create fundamental uncertainty in the Nexus Collective's perception of reality. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense, but sophisticated information constructs that could temporarily disrupt the most advanced sensing and processing capabilities. They believe in absolute predictability, Kamau explained during a classified briefing. "We're going to show them the power of uncertainty." The first major test came when the Nexus Collective attempted to launch what appeared to be a preliminary scanning probe. Instead of a straightforward technological encounter, they found themselves navigating a quantum landscape that constantly shifted, where information itself became a defensive mechanism. Quantum entanglement relays created multiple simultaneous realities. Communication channels would suddenly branch into countless potential interpretations. Sensor data would reveal contradictory information, each piece equally valid and impossible to definitively resolve. In the hidden research facility beneath the Gobi Desert, Dr. Marcus Chen worked on the most audacious project yet. Drawing from cutting-edge research in quantum consciousness and information theory, his team was developing a technological interface that could essentially think in ways completely alien to the Nexus Collective's understanding. "They see technology as a tool," Marcus told his team. "We're creating technology as a living, adaptive organism." The Nexus Collective's initial confidence began to waver. Their approach, which had conquered countless civilizations, found itself confronted with a species that didn't just resist, it transformed the very nature of the encounter. Intercepted communication patterns suggested growing confusion. The collective's attempts to categorize and understand humanity kept failing. Every time they thought they had found a pattern, the human response would shift, adapt, become something entirely unexpected. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, monitoring the global quantum network, saw the larger picture emerging. We're not just defending, she realized. We're demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to existence. The quantum frontier was becoming a battlefield of consciousness, where traditional concepts of conflict dissolved. Humanity was showing that technology wasn't just about power, but about potential, the ability to reimagine, to adapt, to become something more than what was expected. As the interaction intensified, one thing became clear. The Nexus Collective had encountered something completely unprecedented. This wasn't just a technological challenge. This was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could be. The game was changing, and humanity was rewriting the rules. Consciousness and conflict. The boundary between technology and consciousness blurred in ways no one had anticipated. Dr. Aria Valdez stood at the epicenter of humanity's most radical experiment, her fingers hovering over a quantum interface that seemed to breathe with its own intelligence. The Cognitive Resonance Project was unlike any research initiative in human history. Developed in a hidden facility deep within the Amazon rainforest, it represented the culmination of decades of research into human consciousness, artificial intelligence, and the fundamental nature of perception. We're not just creating a defense, Aria explained to her core team. We're demonstrating a new form of existence. The Nexus Collective had begun to deploy what they considered their most advanced weapon, a quantum-level consciousness disruption field designed to fundamentally alter the cognitive patterns of any civilization they encountered. It was a technology that had subjugated countless species, breaking their will through a precise manipulation of neural pathways and collective consciousness. But they had never encountered humanity. Instead of resisting the consciousness field, human networks began to interact with it in completely unexpected ways. The AQRN didn't just defend. It engaged, transformed, and ultimately began to reshape the very nature of the intrusion. Dr. Marcus Chen's team had prepared for this moment. The quantum communication networks they had developed were more than just technological systems. They were living, adaptive organisms that could process information in ways that defied traditional understanding. Look, Marcus said, pointing to a holographic display that showed the interaction between human and Nexus systems. The consciousness field, instead of overwhelming human networks, found itself being analyzed, understood, and ultimately transformed. Commander Aisha Okoro coordinated the global response from her orbital command center. The defense was no longer about stopping an invasion. It was about demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to existence. Multiple research teams around the world had been preparing for this moment. In the Himalayas, a group of neurologists and quantum physicists had been developing techniques to understand consciousness as a fluid, adaptive system. Their work suggested that human consciousness was not a fixed state, but a dynamic, ever-changing network of possibilities. The Nexus Collective's consciousness disruption field encountered something it had never seen before. Where previous civilizations had rigid, predictable neural patterns, humanity's collective consciousness was like a living ecosystem, constantly changing, adapting, finding new pathways of connection and understanding. Dr. Zora Nakamura monitored the interaction from her quantum communication hub. They're trying to impose a fixed state of consciousness, she observed. But we're showing them that consciousness is a process, not a destination. Quantum entanglement relays began to do something extraordinary. They didn't just transmit information. They began to generate new forms of communication that existed between states of being. Languages emerged that were part mathematical formula, part emotional expression, part pure potential. The hidden facilities beneath the Gobi Desert and Cheyenne Mountain became the crucibles of this unprecedented encounter. Dr. Kama Okello's team had developed what they called cognitive multiplicity protocols, systems that could exist in multiple states of understanding simultaneously. We're not just resisting, Kamau explained during an emergency global briefing. We're expanding the very definition of what resistance means. The Nexus Collective found itself confronted with a fundamental paradox. Their advanced scanning technologies could detect human technological systems, but they couldn't predict or categorize them. Every time they thought they understood a pattern, humanity would shift, adapt, become something entirely unexpected. Intercepted communication patterns suggested growing confusion within the collective. Their hierarchical understanding of technological progression was being challenged at every level. Humanity wasn't just defending, it was redefining the very nature of technological interaction. As the encounter intensified, something remarkable began to happen. The lines between defense and communication, between technology and consciousness, started to dissolve. Humanity was showing that true strength wasn't about resistance, but about the ability to transform, to see potential where others saw only conflict. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, watching the global quantum network, realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't just a conflict between two civilizations. This was a conversation about the nature of existence itself. The quantum frontier had become a battlefield of consciousness, where the most powerful weapon was the ability to imagine, to adapt, to become something more than what was expected. And humanity was just getting started. Humanity's resonance. The final moment of confrontation arrived not with a thunderous clash of weapons, but with a profound silence that resonated across the quantum spectrum. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the heart of the global quantum network, her hands hovering over an interface that seemed to breathe with collective human potential. What the Nexus Collective had perceived as a potential conquest had transformed into something entirely unexpected. Humanity wasn't just resisting, it was communicating on a level that transcended traditional understanding of conflict, technology, and consciousness. The Orbital Command Center, a marvel of international cooperation, hummed with an energy that was part technological marvel, part collective human spirit. Commander Aisha Okoro watched as the quantum networks began to pulse with a rhythm that was simultaneously mathematical precision and pure creative chaos. Dr. Kamau Okello's Cognitive Resonance Project had prepared humanity for this moment. The systems they had developed were more than defensive mechanisms. They were a living demonstration of human potential. Each quantum relay, each communication network became a node of collective intelligence that defied the Nexus Collective's understanding of technological progression. We're not just defending, Kamau had said earlier. We're communicating our entire potential as a species. The Nexus Collective's advanced scanning technologies found themselves confronted with a fundamental paradox. Humanity presented not as a linear civilization to be conquered, but as a dynamic, ever-evolving network of consciousness and potential. Dr. Zara Nakamura's breakthrough in quantum communication became the key. The language they had developed wasn't just a method of communication, it was a demonstration of human creativity. Each transmission was a complex tapestry of information, emotion, potential, and imagination that the collective simply could not comprehend. In the hidden research facility beneath the Gobi Desert, Dr. Marcus Chen watched as the final stages of the encounter unfolded. The quantum interfaces began to generate something unprecedented, a form of communication that was part mathematical formula, part emotional expression, part pure potential. The Nexus Collective's consciousness disruption field, which had subjugated countless civilizations, encountered a fundamental roadblock. Humanity's collective consciousness wasn't a fixed target. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of ideas, constantly shifting, adapting, reimagining itself. Intercepted communication patterns suggested complete bewilderment within the collective. Their hierarchical understanding of technological and biological systems simply couldn't process what they were experiencing. Humanity wasn't just resisting. It was expanding the very definition of resistance. Dr. Aria Valdez's Cognitive Resonance Project reached its culmination. The quantum networks began to generate a response that was both a defense and an invitation, a complex communication that demonstrated humanity's unique approach to existence. We are not a problem to be solved, the transmission seemed to say. We are a potential to be understood. The encounter reached its critical point. The Nexus Collective found itself faced with a civilization that refused to be categorized, conquered, or understood through traditional means. Humanity had transformed the very nature of the conflict, turning a potential invasion into a profound conversation about the nature of consciousness, potential, and existence. Commander Okoro's voice cut through the quantum networks. "We are not just defending our planet," she announced. "We are demonstrating what it means to be truly alive." As the final moments of the encounter unfolded, something remarkable happened. The Nexus Collective's approach began to change. What had started as a mission of conquest became something else, a moment of genuine understanding. The quantum networks pulsed with a final transmission, a complex, multi-layered communication that was part invitation, part explanation, part pure potential. It wasn't a declaration of victory, but a statement of possibility. Humanity had done more than defend itself. It had expanded the very understanding of what intelligent life could be. In the hidden facilities around the world, the teams that had prepared for this moment exchanged looks of quiet satisfaction. They had prepared not just a defense, but a demonstration of human potential. The universe had just received a message, and it was only the beginning.